Welcome to Cowra Regional Gallery. I'm Tunnicliffe, Head Curator of Australian Art at the Art Gallery New South Wales and judge for this year's Calleen Art Award. Please come with me, we're going to look at some of the highlights as we walk through the exhibition. This painting by Genevieve Carroll is called A Poem as a Painting. And it's an exuberant, amusing, funny, well-painted work, I think. It has this wonderful sense of contingency in it. She's painted an urn, and she speaks about this work as being inspired by walking through Hill End, the old gold mining town, and seeing fragments of broken pottery and shards of ceramics on the ground, and thinking about their past as complete vessels. But she's also thinking about a famous poem by John Keats, written in 1819, an ode on a Grecian urn, in which Keats looks at an inanimate object, a Grecian urn, and contemplates how culture and beauty speak to us over time, and how at the end of our individual lives, the beauty of art persists. So Genevieve, in this work, is paying homage to Keats's great poem from 1819, but she does it in this wonderful contingent way, painted from the fragments at Hill End to construct her own version of beauty in the landscape. And I think one of the great pleasures in working on this exhibition and doing the final judging for it is seeing how artists work in such different ways and approaching these quite familiar and similar techniques and technologies, if you like, the material of paint itself. And one of the artists that stood out for me in the exhibition was Louise Zhang, with this terrific work here, with this ebullient sense of energy in it, these wonderful, bright, luminous, almost fluorescent colours. It's a work which is calling on pop culture, but also Louise's own Australian Chinese heritage. And you can see symbols within the work of hope, of longevity, this convergence of painterly energy which comes together within it. And it has the terrific title of Vain Hope, Wishful Thinking, this idea of positive thinking, of hoping for things to be better. And it has these chrysanthemum flowers which emerge out of the colour forms as well, dotted across the painting, which really sort of play into that idea of symbolising a life of ease, as Louise discusses with the work. But I really enjoyed the way this brought together colour-informed cultural references with pop culture elements as well, to present a canvas which is intensely engaging. There's a very strong group of works by Aboriginal artists that have been entered this year, and they really are striking. This particular work really stood out for me by Picciari Price. Anna is an Amateur woman who grew up in Boundary Bor, near Utopia, northeast of Alice Springs. And she paints her country in this work with this incredibly fine technique. So using this black ground and white dots, very simplified palette of colours, she traces out lines which have meaning for her on country. And she refers to the water bores, to the sand hills, to the plains across where she grew up and lives, and how they coalesce within this imagery. So it's a work very much about country, about belonging, about place, and her deep experience of that place. And it's expressed with such fine, delicate sensibility in this work. Another strong response to a sense of place is this painting by Wendy Teakel. And it's very different from the previous paintings we've looked at. I mean, it is quite abstracted, but within that abstraction you have forms which are representational. Leaves, and these burnt areas here, and this wire which is pink from fire as well. So as you may have guessed, this is a response to the bushfires. I had a personal experience of that on my country property, and this reminds me very strongly of that, the sense of scorching and scarring, this dark ash, but also the sense that it will regenerate, that life will come out of that landscape quite quickly as well. So it's a work that does respond to that specific experience, but does it in this very poetic way with these reference points through it. This painting by Naomi Lawler is in a different register. I mean, it's a portrait to begin with. And it's a realist portrait, and it's very well painted. It's a work I was drawn to because it has this sense of poignancy within it. It's a self-portrait. She's looking out at us, and she's sort of gazing into our souls, which is what you want a good portrait to do. She looks into our souls. We get a sense of hers as well. It seems to have a sense of uncertainty within it. She described angst and confusion when she was painting herself, and I think that comes across. There's also a sense of stoicism as well. There's a sense of strength in this work, and I found it really quite compelling. Another painting I was drawn to is this work by Christie, which I think almost perfectly sums up all our experiences of COVID over the last 18 months. It's called What Remains, with Ruby Princess Grapefruit and Lockdown Tape. I think as she says herself, a compost drama of cancelled plans, Zoom drinks, close contacts, sudden exposures, and desperate measures. So I think that's all encapsulated in this work. With this really bold sense of colour in there as well. So, and I think perhaps like Carol, that we all hope we can leave this behind as we enter in our sort of double-vaxxed stage as we go through what happens next. Another work I was intrigued by is this painting by Michael Sims called Strong Men. He's coated in these bright metallic colours, and they seem to be approaching each other in a way which is open to discussion. Is it a way which is aggressive, or is it a way which is perhaps loving instead? So I think that sort of contradiction is held within the work, and it just sort of speaks to how these two figures are encountering each other. And behind me, hanging adjacent to that, is a work which is very different again by a very senior abstract artist, Cole Jordan. And he's been painting since the 1960s, when he was amongst the young Australian artists who embraced hard-edge abstraction. And this work, again, it presents this strong diagonal cross, and it's called Star-Crossed, and there's black and white forms behind it. But it has a particular reference as well. It's a revisiting of an earlier version he did in the 1980s in relation to a student of his who died unexpectedly. And he did this version here, which is sort of bold and dynamic, but has within it a sense of grief as well, which I think underlies that cross. I responded very strongly to this painting in the exhibition, a work by Rachel Ellis called Claret Ash Bathurst, painted this year in 2021. And as the claret ashes flushed this bright red, it must have been in autumn 2021. It's a work which I responded to because it has a deceptive simplicity. It's a painting of a street tree with an electric power pole, the street itself, and a few blocky buildings. But what I found extraordinary about it is the sense of light, and the sense of how light has imbued colour to create form within the work. The more you look into it, the more you realise how the artist has really worked up this surface, has painted up, has sprayed back, has thought through the exact placement of all the components. But the work itself, I think, has enormous power. It's incredibly well painted, it has great gravitas, and has the strong sense of place, a really strong sense of a lived experience of this light, this atmosphere, and this environment. As you may suspect from the way I've spoken about this painting and how strongly I responded to it, this is the winner of the Calleen Art Award 2021.